Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles. Thank you for joining us from whatever altitude you are at. We are at the altitude of 5,280 feet, mile high territory, where we hope that you decide to rise up in September of 2023. You can get the details at riseuptomilehigh.com. And also, we highly encourage you hit subscribe on whatever platform you're watching or listening to this, so you never miss any Mile High tick. We're grateful that Dr. Amy Haas is joining us today on the podcast. You're in for a real treat, and you'd also be in a real treat if you hear her from the stage in September of this year, 2023. Dr. Amy Haas, for those that don't know her, is a New England native born and raised in Connecticut. After completing her BS degree, she decided to go a little further and follow it up with a MS and a PhD. She then decided to complete a postdoctoral fellowship in pathology in the Department of Pathology at Harvard Medical School in Boston. And she moved on to being a research scientist and decided to leave research science, which was a traditional career, to become something a little bit more unconventional, which is a Doctor of Chiropractic. And after completing that at Life University in 2009, she moved back to England to start her own practice, locating, adjusting, and subluxations. And we are grateful to have her contributions to the chiropractic profession. In addition to her practice, she decided to publish 2 original papers, which is phenomenal. And she really brings a unique voice and unique knowledge to chiropractic. So thank you for joining us today on the Mile High Podcast, Amy. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun to chat with you.
I always love chatting with you. And I just got to ask, first and foremost, what's going on with your travels around the Northeast in your camper? Because that's probably the most important question.
Thank you. That is the most important question. A couple of years ago, I got a little teardrop trailer, and that was my first experience towing anything, except for one little previous experience towing my car behind me at a dolly and a budget truck up the East Coast alone, but that was a different story. So my first actual camping with a trailer experience was with this teardrop, and I discovered how much I absolutely loved it because of a couple of things. The rain on the roof is wonderful, and the rain on the roof and knowing the rain is not going to come into the tent is a novel concept, having been a tent camper my whole life. So last year, sometime November-ish, December-ish, a absolutely beautifully targeted, get this, Facebook ad showed up in my feed, and it was this new trailer by the same manufacturer as my teardrop, and the new trailer was named The Barefoot. I'm like, did you really just put my name on that? And it turns out that the Barefoot has the amenities that the teardrop did not have, specifically indoor plumbing. Which I'm turning 50 this year. So my running joke is I gifted myself indoor plumbing for my 50th birthday.
Well, you know, shelter from the elements and indoor plumbing were pretty good advancements for humanity.
Yeah. So the best part, and you'll particularly appreciate this, was instead of going outside of the trailer, starting up the propane stove, being out if it was raining or something, all I had to do to make coffee in this brand new trailer was roll off the bed, put the pan on the stove, fill it with water, and make my coffee inside in the comfort of my own little trailer with windows looking everywhere. Wonderful. So I love it. And plans this summer, I don't know, they're kind of free. Decide where I'm going to go, when I'm going to go. That's really my thing.
That's one of the fun things about campers.
Yeah.
So now, talking about upgrades, you went from your research science world to the chiropractic world. And to some ways, that was an upgrade for you personally. Can you share a little bit about how you decided to make that decision to shift your trajectory of your life towards chiropractic?
These days, thank you for asking that question. These days, a lot more people can relate to the decisions that I was faced with back when I was 31. I went through my postdoctoral fellowship, and there were some issues there. So I chose to leave that a little bit early and transition towards a position in local biotech.
Mhm.
And it was there that I discovered that the processes for basic science and clinical research that lead to clinical trials and so-called safe drugs, the basic processes can be so flawed.
Mm.
It's just jaw-dropping. It just really disappointing. And
Mhm.
the systems that I encountered there, my instinct, of course, was to solve the puzzle and correct the system. And I was told that that wasn't acceptable because the systems had already been accepted by the FDA. And if we had to go back and revamp the systems, it was going to cost the company money. So we weren't going to do that.
Mhm. Okay.
Uh, that comprises a small ethical problem,
Right.
particularly when you're looking at the product and saying the first time someone gets this product, they might have some problems, but the second time they get this product, it might kill them.
Mm.
So getting a good quality GMP, product is essential in this particular case. And the checks and balances were not there. And at that time, I was looking to leave the biotech because of my issues with what was going on. And as the universe would have it, that was exactly the same time that the Merck Vioxx scandal broke. And the
Right.
Merck, yep, the Merck's Vioxx scandal was a retrospective view illuminating the concept that what was named to be a quote unquote perfectly safe drug was actually killing people. And someone found this out in a process called post-marketing surveillance. That should be the key word that is important to anybody here. Post-marketing surveillance is what happens after a product is released. Is there adequate data gathered to characterize whether that product is safe or not? Is that data gathered in a systematic way that actually gives meaningful answers?
Right.
It's important. So the post-marketing surveillance on the Merck drug Vioxx showed that it was yielding an increased incidence of cardiovascular issues, strokes and heart attacks.
Mhm.
Now, at the time, of course, I was in a very medical paradigm. I had taken Vioxx myself.
Got it.
So when I was reading about this in the paper, I'm like, wait, I'm leaving this company because of problems with their foundational science. And I took a drug that had the same problems that killed people, and they're finding this out 5 to 10 years later. How widespread is this really in the industry, in pharma? So I did kind of a out of the box thinking of things I was not supposed to think about, questioning how good are these processes. And I think in the past 3 years, many of the rest of you have come up to speed with the knowledge that these processes are, I'm not going to swear because this is a podcast, but you
Mhm.
can just imagine what I just said, problematic. And
Mm.
when I came across these truths back in 2004, that was about the same time that I actually came to be under the care of a chiropractor. I had,
Mhm.
as many outdoor athletes, I had bashed my body. I remember sitting down at the initial consult, and he said, "Tell me about your 5 top traumas." And I'm like, "I've never had a major car accident. I've never been hospitalized, but there may have been a couple of mountain bike accidents and a couple of falls here and there, like, yeah, some really good stuff, because outdoor athletes, we do stupid things. Um, we
Right.
do.
I
It's
know. Right.
prefrontal cortex wasn't really functional, still isn't. Um, Adrenaline, it's fun. So, what does not kill you makes you stronger. So,
Mhm.
anyways, I started chiropractic care for that purpose, to take care of my body after I'd been bashing it for, 10, 15 years. And all of a sudden I discovered how much better my body really could work.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, I actually I was very prejudiced against chiropractic to begin with.
Right. Right.
Originally, I did not want to go to a chiropractor. I was like, I'm not going to a quack. Wow, the universe had some fun with me there.
Right.
Right. And that's literally what I used to think. And then the results spoke for themselves, for sure.
Right.
Came an exploration. And at one point, I was sitting at a bar in downtown Boston, and I was having a Harpoon IPA. The bar was called the Joshua Tree. Actually, no, that
Perfect
was
name for a bar. Great name for a bar.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah. I used to love this place. It was pretty close to my house. And I was sitting there drinking a Harpoon IPA, which is a New England native kind of thing. And all of a sudden, you know how one beer can loosen your thought process just a little bit?
Right.
All of a sudden, I'm like, I had already left my job at this point. I was becoming a rock climbing bum and a mountain biking bum with a PhD. And I was fine with that for the time being. I had decent severance from the biotech when I left. Interesting conditions there, but that was a different story.
Mhm.
Um, so I was deciding what I was going to do with the rest of my life, and I was trying to figure that out. I'm like, I don't want to be in pharma and biotech anymore because I'm at odds with their some of
Thought
their.
process. Right.
And secondarily, you have to ask the question, what is the purpose of pharma? Is their purpose really to make life better, or is their purpose to sell products? And when you deconstruct that carefully and you recognize that they are not in it for the betterment of humanity, they're in it to line their pocketbooks, and they'll take shortcuts. When you come to that realization, it kind of takes the shine off of it, so to speak. So I was unemployed, rock climbing bum, sitting in the Joshua Tree, and I was had just ordered my first Harpoon IPA. I was writing in my journal, and all of a sudden it came out in my journal, and I saw myself write it. I didn't even think it. I saw myself write it. Why are you not considering becoming a chiropractor? And all of a sudden, the world just cracked open. My prejudice revealed itself to me. And I was like, wow, Amy, why don't you think about that? Why are you so resistant to that idea? It's changed your life.
Right.
It's a valid possibility for helping other people to go out and play. And that's where it began. I will say that when I started with that train of thought, it was strictly for neck pain and back pain because I didn't believe in this thing called subluxation. I thought it was a
Right.
made up word. And, it was a very ethereal concept to me, less light. Okay. Because I'm a scientist, of course. So, it's like, okay, put a number on that. Less light is measured by what? So I had some difficulty with that, and decided to go to school in Georgia to become a back pain and neck pain specialist, actually. And I remember standing with a couple of my fellow students and Guy Riefman, and he was
Hmm.
towering over us as he does. And he asked the group of 4 or 5 of us, so what are you planning to do with your career? And a couple of my classmates who actually were in regular contact, I just saw one of them in Charlotte about a month ago after Sherman. So he was standing in this group. The other students were like, yeah, we're going to make the world a better place by helping people to reduce or eliminate subluxations. And I said, yeah, I'm going to help people with back pain so they can go out and play. And the look on Guy Reekman's face, he just had a, he just,
That's
his
so
face was like,
funny.
oh my gosh, his face went dead. And I had no idea what I had said or done wrong. I was like,
Or
what?
really who you were saying it to.
No, I was
Right.
like, what? I clearly did something wrong. I have no idea. Anyways,
Right.
so that's where I was my first couple of years in school. Although my fellow students, to their credit, kept trying to open my brain towards a
Right.
bigger picture, but very resistant because,
Uh,
as it is with many people, I needed to hear it in my own way.
right.
It took until midway through school. I was sitting in Will Amos's class again with those two of those same people, my classmates, and he presented two things. One, actually, we'll just focus on the one thing. He presented the garbage in, garbage out analogy in terms of the safety pin cycle. And I turned to Matt next to me and I said, do you mind if I swear, Danny?
No, I don't
So
mind.
accurate. I said, why the fuck didn't you tell me that? And he looks at me and he's like, I've been trying to tell you that for 2 years. I'm like, oh, that's what you were trying to tell me. So I needed to hear it in my own parlance, in my own analogies. And then Amos sent home homework for us to do, and it happened to be Chris Kent's 5 model paper on subluxation. And I read through that, especially the disafferentation theory, and I went, okay, so logically this follows. And then the next question, of course, would be my classic question: as measured by what? What does the research say?
Mhm.
Ever so coincidentally, the Bacchus and Dickles paper on blood pressure had come out that year. And of course, that is a beautifully done placebo-controlled randomized clinical trial demonstrating significant, clinically and statistically significant reduction in blood pressure in upper cervical patients adjusted for vertebral subluxation. So I read that paper and I went, okay, there's something here. That's really interesting. And that's kind of the birth of it, so to speak. Oh, and I should say in about that same month, and this is all about in 2008, Matt Horkey handed me a review by a Lenkoff review on the cholinergic anti-inflammatory pathway of the vagus as relates to immunity. And
Okay.
we were studying vagus at the time in school. And again, I had one of those moments of, why did no one say this? So we all need to hear it in our own ways, and we all think differently, and that's wonderful. That's a great thing about our profession. What I'm bringing to our profession that's a little bit different is the background of quantitative thinking and how to address a research question, because we have to be able to interface with other fields in a way that makes sense to both us and them. While subluxation philosophically absolutely makes the most intuitive and foundational sense to all of us, we need to be able to put a number on that
Mhm.
reproducibly and look at its indicators and outcomes in a research-centric model. So that's kind of what my talk is about at Mile High. I mean, you saw the talk at Sherman.
Sherman, which was outstanding.
Thank you. What I did when I got home from Sherman was, okay, Amy, that was, you got most of your points across, but did you get all of your points across? And I literally sat home and looked through the presentation and said, you missed this, you missed this, you missed this. And I put them in as separate slides to cue myself. So there is no way I'm missing those points from the stage at Mile High, and people's brains are going to hurt by the time I'm done. And I'm sorry, I'm not sorry.
Well, so as I was listening to you, really a question that's came up to my mind is this: with your background, um, obviously we're talking about you in school, and you've learned more since you left school, right? Your knowledge base has increased since that time, as you know, would be typical. What do you find or consider at this point, or maybe even back then, as the most compelling evidence of subluxation?
You're not going to like my answer.
I don't know that's accurate, that I won't like it. What do you think? Or what are the things that are the most, the couple things, whatever it might be?
Clinical observation.
Ah, and why do you say that?
We need to do a better job of taking what we clinically observe, because you see it, I see it, I see it every day. I can detect it. I can see when it goes away. I can see what
Mhm.
it does to my patients. Now, how do we translate that into a case study? You and I have both done case studies and bigger stuff. How do we encourage, you know, other people to systematize what they're observing and find a way to share it in the research avenue with humanity? Observational data, foundational observational data, it is so strong in chiropractic, it's just not funny. So
Okay.
that's where I think our greatest strength of it is, and I think that's where our greatest opportunity. Um, are you talking about what indicator or what?
No, just I mean something across your back time frame from even in school or pre-chiropractic school must have been like, wow, there's something to this that you read or seen somewhere. That's really what I was thinking.
Vacra study definitely caught my eye. There have been several. Well, I'm going to clarify even before I state this. The reason I appreciate upper cervical research is they are looking at less variables. It's a
Ah,
cleaner experimental system.
right,
It's
and
not,
that is a good point.
it's just simplicity in terms of versus permutations. We have a permutation problem with the number of subluxations within a spine, much less the differences in patterns between people. And that's a challenging problem for chiropractic research, for sure, for sure.
Mhm.
Upper cervical research gives us a cleaner experimental system to look at pre and
Mhm.
post.
Mhm.
So there's a couple of papers that I think were really striking. The Backros and Dickles paper is
Mhm.
really beautifully done. And there's a new paper by Julie Hunt and her group. Have you seen that one?
No.
It's you can tell when I get really stoked. It's super duper beautiful. It is an observational trial in a similar genre as the blood pressure trial, but they were looking for changes, immediate and lasting changes in salivary secretory IgA after adjustments.
Okay.
And what they found was, as compared to control, there was a transient but statistically significant increase in secretory IgA and patients adjusted for subluxation. So this one, it was released, it's less than a year old. It's an absolutely beautiful study. I'll send it to you. One thing so that one of the things that we need to think about is the distinction between statistical significance and clinical significance.
Mhm.
Yeah, the number is significant, and a secondary question is, what does that mean for overall patient outcomes? What was really beautiful about this paper is deficiency in secretory IgA has clinical consequences. So changing secretory IgA has the implication of potentially changed patient outcomes.
Oh, interesting.
At the very least, it certainly shows immediate immune system outcome change after adjustment for subluxation.
Okay.
Wish we'd had that a couple of years ago. She was working on it.
Well, and it's true, as a profession, we have to quote unquote work it on more. And I really am grateful that Matthew McCoy puts out, really leads a charge about us having more case studies. And obviously, case study is not the only end result we want by any means, but it's an important part of the elements of having evidence and research. And every chiropractor has cases and information in their office, or most chiropractors do. So
I agree wholeheartedly. Do you remember in the Sherman presentation that I asked people to raise their hands if they had if they had a patient in their office where they think they could do a case study that would contribute to chiropractic research, and nearly everyone in the audience raised their hand. And I turned to the audience and I said, what would happen to chiropractic research if we all published our case studies?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Observational evidence would take the next reasonable step.
Right.
It's a foundation of, especially in particular, when we think about evidence-informed care, not necessarily evidence-based care, because they limit their criteria for research to RCTs.
Right.
And RCTs that's its own challenge. We're going to talk about that a little bit from the stage from Mile High. I think observational data and case studies, when they're well done, can actually really strengthen our stance.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. Super important. So, and vital that we do more. So, I mean, I'd like more people to really take up that charge, because so many people have just a plethora of data in their office, including me. I want to have more published than I have. So, but understanding that there is a significant amount of science there that's compelling is vital for people to understand. Maybe last topic that I'd like to touch on for, dive into is heart rate variability. So can you share with people, I mean, some people listening to this or watching this may not have any knowledge about HRV and may not use it in their office. Why do you think HRV, heart rate variability, is important in the research world relative to chiropractic?
I love that question. I love that question. HRV presents a really unique opportunity for us as chiropractors who are focused on that adaptability thing, because 33 principles and subluxation obstructs adaptability. So, as you and I know, heart rate variability as a metric is a reflection of, it's almost a surrogate endpoint, but you could say it's more of a reflection of the cardio-autonomic modulation of heart activity.
Okay.
And explain this to patients is, you expect your heart to increase its rate if you go up a flight of stairs. You expect your heart to decrease its rate if you're just sitting on the sofa doing nothing. How quickly your heart does that is a function of how adaptable you are.
Right.
So anybody who's not been in great shape, and you and I have both been in that state once or twice in our lives, all of a sudden you go up that flight of stairs and you're like, what the heck? You're not adapting well. Whereas right now, having done a lot of the work, when either of us goes up a flight of stairs, it's like, oh, did my heart rate change? Your body adapts well to the challenge. So heart rate variability, when it is higher, in the time domain metric, when it's higher, reflects that your body is on its toes. And that has to do with the safety pin cycle. Input drives output. Your brain, specifically the cardiac autonomic network within your brainstem, will take all of the information from your body, whether that's proprioceptive, mechanoreceptive, visceroceptive, and integrate that information to decide what the outgoing command should be. And the efferent arm of that, of course, is the vagus nerve, which is going to modulate the heart. So it's an overall metric. It's not one thing or the other. It's a reflection of the safety pin cycle. In classic HRV research literature, its definition is constrained to cardio-autonomic modulation of the heart. But I think we can extrapolate that a little bit more to communicate that this is a reflection of how well the body is perceiving its internal and external environment, integrating that information and executing the appropriate command.
Super important. And, it's, I will add, this is the less sciencey, it's really the more marketing part of it, which is that it is more in the public awareness. Just one of these things. I mean, there's reasons why companies
Yep.
are making the Whoop and Oura Ring that people, it's in somebody's awareness that this is a metric relative to their health.
Mhm.
Thanks to the dollars that companies have put behind it into getting into the public.
Yeah. And we, as chiropractors who have published papers in this exact discipline, we have demonstrated that HRV improves when someone is adjusted for vertebral subluxation. And
Mhm.
that seems pretty important when the whole purpose of these little rings is to check your HRV and make sure it's high. So if
Right.
there's an intervention such as the adjustment, which empowers your body to have a higher HRV, you would think that's a good marketing angle, especially if you can back it up with data.
Right, right. Absolutely, absolutely. So then, what do you think, what's next for Dr. Amy in your life and science, research, chiropractic, camping? What's next for Dr. Amy?
Going camping this weekend. I have a beautiful spot on the ocean front outside of Portland, Maine. So I will be sleeping to the sound of gentle ocean waves. So that'll be super awesome. Um, I'm still working on the paper that I'm writing. This, oh my goodness.
Mhm.
When Back when quote unquote things happened in 2020, um,
Quote unquote things happen. I love
things
it. Love it.
um, a lot of folks were looking for information to back up their marketing statements, and the marketing statements were often such things as a chiropractic boosts immunity.
Mhm.
Um, we didn't have an organized way to support that. I
Right.
think we have a better way to support similar statements. You and I both know I don't love that statement, a chiropractic boosts immunity. I think we could add one word into there and make it much better. Chiropractic boosts immune adaptability.
Mhm.
I think that would be a little bit more appropriate. Um, and since that time, there have been, let's see, the immunity best practices. McCoy spearheaded that effort to
Right.
summarize a lot of the available research literature. There have been several interesting reviews on neuroendocrine immunology with respect to chiropractic from the above down inside out standpoint. What I'm working at is something quite a bit different. It is looking at our research literature, not from the, sorry, I said that backwards. You know what I was talking about.
Right.
The neuroendocrine immunology reviews that have been released have been from the outside in perspective. The paper that I'm looking at, that I'm writing, is from the above down inside out perspective, which is integrated physiology. We see these observations, how do they connect in the bigger picture, and how is the whole body adapting? So
Right.
that's what I'm working on. And when this whole thing happened, I recognized that this idea, which has been brewing in my head, yes, since 2008, bringing this to fruition was going to be such an, I can't even, I knew if I were to choose to do this project, it was going to literally be the equivalent amount of work for another PhD without any letters after my name. And I can confirm, having done the research and the writing for a 200-page PhD, this is actually very similar, and similarly painful. So the part of the process where I am right now, I will be sitting in my trailer with my feet up on this very laptop with my dog snoring next to me, shredding my own draft to streamline, to make sure that I've got concepts clearly delineated and communicated. Because I'm hoping by the
Mhm.
time Mile High rolls around in September, we will have a full and or submitted for publication draft.
I just want to ask, when you're doing that at the camper, might there be s'mores involved at all?
Oh, that's a good idea. There's going to be campfire for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, campfire for sure. And I found this fantastic Spindrift sparkling water. It's like a lemonade, pink lemonade sparkling water. So there'll be a bunch of that. And oh, you know what else there's going to be?
Mhm.
Lobster rolls. Because it's New England. We need lobster rolls. And I make lobster rolls from scratch. So I'm going to go to the Lobster Pound, and Roxy says hello. She just jumped up. Pick up lobsters and then add some Mark Sisson's. I'm sorry, the screen is probably shaking because Roxy is headbutting me. Mark Sisson's chipotle aioli mayonnaise, and then scallions, onions go pretty good in there as well. And then on a gluten-free bun.
You know, I just might have to meet you on a camping trip.
I know how to camp, dude.
and
Like rock.
and the indoor plumbing is a plus.
Love it. Love
So
it.
you know, I want to thank you for being on this podcast. I want to thank you for being at Mile High many years and taking great outdoor pictures with shirts, and also for your gifts that you're bringing to the profession. You know, people show up with gifts in different ways, and I really appreciate you bringing these particular skill sets, knowledge base to chiropractic. So thank you for myself, and if it's so bold to also, you know, on the behalf of the profession. So, and we look forward to seeing you on Higher Ground in September.
I might need a t-shirt ahead of time.
Camping, we might have to get camping t-shirts.
Oh,
Well,
that'd be kind of
we don't actually have we haven't announced the theme for this year yet. It's kind of going to be a big deal. And, you know, the actual theme t-shirts for this year don't come till there. We don't get them till the day before, but you have to get the other Mile High, you know, let's see. Did you get one from this year, from this past year? Did you get this version? The MH?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I could bring that around and take pictures.
or the other one of these, you know, I keep them handy by my desk. So if I've got to take a picture or a video, I just have them there ready, you know. So this one.
That's that uber mega classic. Yeah.
I just keep one in my car. I keep one at my desk, so like I can just put one on and you know, on the ready. So
I just have one question about your the potential theme for this year's Mile High.
Yes.
Do I have enough fingers?
Well, I just say the hint for the theme is behind me.
Yeah, so I don't think I have enough fingers.
Yeah. Do you know that reference? Okay, there you go. It's going to be fun. So we'll be announcing it soon. You know, it's kind of has a cult following. Some people know it, some don't, you know. But, you know, here's the thing. I realized this was kind of sad. Like, I found out that Led Zeppelin had a cult following. That was kind of disturbing to me. And here's why. Maybe it's not a cult following, but like we put Mile High, and when we did Mile High 4, the shirts were the Led Zeppelin 4 wording, right? That font and all of that. And people of a certain generation just thought it was a cool font. They didn't realize it was related to something.
Oh, we're getting old, aren't we?
Yeah, it was very disturbing for me at the time. So, but we will have fun, and you know, these go to 11. So we will see you at Mile High 11, and rise up to milehigh.com, and so thrilled that you'll be rising up to the Mile High stage this calendar year.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, it's going to be good. So remember, everybody, keep changing spines, lives, and minds with chiropractic.